Let me see. Let me get the chat box open. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Is my screen working? Somehow it froze last class. I didn't even know it. Gave the most perfect lecture that nobody got. Don't want to do that again. So if my screen freezes, please let me know. Let's go back to where we were. Okay. Okay. Just to show you something that's handy. In this on Tuesday, we evaluated a lease from the perspective of the lessee first, and then the lessor. And we first started out with working through the cash flows for each of the 5 periods of the lease, and we found the NPV of the lease to be a negative 45.93. We did the same thing with a little more of a compact analysis. And again, this is the way I would do it if I were asked to do a problem like this. And we came up with the exact same answer. Then we evaluated the lease from the perspective of the lessor and pretty much followed the same procedure that we would have for the lessee. I didn't bother to go through all the cash flows. We could have, I guess, but I didn't see any value in doing that. And so we just followed that same compact procedure and found that this is the NPV of the lease for the lessor. Lessor, of course, being the party who is writing the lease, receiving the payments. Okay. Now, a question you can answer relatively quickly when compared to trying to do this with a financial calculator or with pencil and paper and a financial calculator would be, what would the lease payment have to be such that the lease would be mutually beneficial, not just mutually, but equally beneficial to both parties? Okay. So what would the lease payment have to be such that and mutually beneficial? Well, that would mean NPV. So what would be the lease payment such that the NPV for both parties to the lease would be exactly the same? All right. Now, in order to do this, obviously you don't have to follow me cell by cell here, but what you do have to have is that every place in my analysis where I reference a payment, it has to come from the same cell. So I have cell B5 here. This is my lease payment. And as you can see, when we did the cash flows, I referenced cell B5. Down here, when I calculated the after-tax lease payments, you can see the B5 right here. When I did the analysis from the perspective of the lessor, it was B5 again. All right, so every place on this sheet where I reference a lease payment, and it's not typed anywhere, it's just in cell, well, 2 places, B5, but every cell for which I have a lease payment refers to cell B5. Okay, now I have that in place, so now I can continue. So this is the NPV of the lease to the lessor. Let's bring down the NPV to the lessee, and we could do it either way. We could choose this one or this one. They're the same. Let's choose this one. Okay. So if these parties, so NPV of the lease, if you want, we can maybe try to make this a little more clear. This is the lessor, and this is the lessee. All right. So lessor, lessee. what would the payment have to be such that these are the same? Well, I think the general procedure for addressing an issue like this is to note that if these two are the same, then their difference is 0. So we can say equals this one minus this one. We can say equals this one minus this one. Either way, would not matter a bit. All right, let's do it this way. All right. So if these two payments are the same, or I'm sorry, if these two NPVs are the same, then this difference, and let's label this as difference, would have to be 0, wouldn't it? All right, so this is just a matter of either using Solver or GoalSeek. We can find GoalSeek in the Data tab, and it's over here in What If Analysis, and you just click on GoalSeek. All right, or, oops, my fault. Or what I did, of course, is I did What If Analysis, and then I did a right mouse and set, and at the time, Add to Quick Access Toolbar. I clicked on that, and now anytime I want to do GoalSeek, it's right here. So I can be under any, I can stay on my home ribbon anytime I want and just select GoalSeek here. And just to make sure I know which one, because you see, these are kind of generic buttons or icons. You know, you can see this one's the same. Well, this is the data table, but these are the same. So what I do is I put my GoalSeek next to my solver. So I know the one of these two generic icons, the one which is next to my solver, is my GoalSeek. So I just click on my GoalSeek, right? And then I make this difference. I set the difference to a value of 0, and I have Excel change the payment to make that difference 0. So we scroll up, and my single cell to which all other payment calculations reference, it's right here, and I say OK. All right. So if I say OK, you can see that the payment is $101.01. The NPV to the lessee is 23.72. The NPV of the lease to the lessee on this analysis is the same, and to the lessor, it's exactly the same. So that's just kind of a type of analysis you can do on Excel. I just wanted to show you that. We could do just numerous other ones, but I think that we might be overexpanding the scope of this. But there's one more thing I would like you to see. And let's just open a new sheet if we could. And let's go through a loan. Let's go through the principal. Okay. And the purpose of this exercise, like just to make a little note to yourself, answer the question, why do we not include financing cash flows in lease analysis? The leasing company, which was, when I was visiting them, was in the process of writing leases for shrimp boats in Louisiana. Obviously didn't have any shrimp boats to lease and had to buy them and didn't have that kind of capital. But what he did have was several funding sources, which would very immediately loan the money to him. And then the shrimp boats then became the collateral of the loan. and then he wrote the rest of the lease. That was fine. Okay, and when I first started teaching leasing many, many years ago, we did include the financing cash flows. And we actually had an alternative way of evaluating leasing arrangements, and we actually did it with the IRR, if you can imagine that. And here we show if we have a positive NPV, then we would accept the lease. Well, if you're using the IRR, if the IRR of the lease exceeds the after-tax cost of borrowing, then you would accept the lease. Well, I mean, this is strange. I mean, I think everybody knows the inherent weaknesses of the IRR method. So we pretty much got away from that. Now we only do the NPV method. But when you had the rates in there, it was kind of interesting because you could ask several other questions. And one would be, oh, for example, if the lessor has to earn, say, 12% on this lease, what would the lease payment have to be? Well, you can answer a question like that if you can incorporate the rates in there. So there's some advantages to that, but at the same time, if you're just restricting your processes to determining the NPV of a lease and determining whether or not to accept a lease and determining minimum lease payments, the lessor is willing to accept, and the maximum lease payment the lessee is willing to make. I mean, that's the three big things about leases. So rates aren't necessary for that. That's why we don't do it. Well, let's see, why don't we include these financing cash flows? So let's finance this $500 this $500 asset, and then let's use the lessor's rate, and we'll say 6%. And let's keep the tax rate at 21%. Right. Okay, here we go. If I were actually a leasing company, and this would be true of any corporate, and that would be if you take out a loan, it's very similar to your car loan. They make monthly payments just like we do. I mean, they're very large, but they make monthly payments. Right? So we don't need to do monthly payments because it just makes the point we're trying to prove more distant, more complicated to see. So we'll stick with annual payments. And there's no sense in making 10 or 15 annual payments. Why? You prove the same point with a smaller number. So let's just have some at least. Let's pay this off in 4 years. So a term. Let's take out a 4-year loan to pay for this $500 asset. And these are years. All right. So let's start out and let's have our year. And so we'll have year 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So let's make these pretty. 7, underline them. I tend to get kind of picky about my spreadsheets, try to make them nice and pretty. I met a guy at a conference once that had some things he did on Excel with his classes, and they had to turn in their Excel sheets. And if you as a student turned in your Excel sheet and your cursor wasn't in cell A1, he took 10 points off. Never seen anything like it. I don't know. But anyway, that's the way it goes. So let's start out with a payment. Okay, so I'll make my first payment at the end. This is a conventional loan, right? This is not a lease. This is a conventional loan. I'm borrowing in order to purchase this $500 asset that I will be leasing. So I'm the lessor, right? Everybody with me on this? I'm the lessor. Okay, so what will my payment be? Well, let's just do it. Equals payment. And the rate would be 6%. Now, keep in mind, if I borrow at 6%, I repay it at 6%. Now, the actual cost to me is something less because I'll deduct the interest as an expense, but as far as making the payment, it has to be, the full 6%. So we'll lock that. And then we'll make, say, number of periods, that would be 4. We'll lock that. Let's lock all these, in fact. And then we'll have the present value will be this $500. Let's lock that. And that's all we need. The type is the default. These will be at the end of the period, so we don't need anything else. If you don't have embedded parentheses in your argument, then Excel will do the right parentheses for you. So there we go. So that's our payment, and we will make 4 of these. Okay. And then we'll have an interest calculation. We'll have a principal calculation. And we will have a interest tax yield. And then I think I'm going to flip these if you don't mind. You can do it either way, I guess, doesn't matter. And then let's pull this down one more yet, and then let's do the, let's go in here. Let's do the after-tax payment. So what does the company make on an after-tax basis? This 144.30 is a before-tax, all right? So let's start out. We borrowed $500. That's pretty obvious here. All right, and interest. This is just as if you're amortizing a loan. So there's nothing particularly difficult about this. So let's take, it's a 6% loan on $500. And let's take our interest rate and make sure we lock it. It will not change throughout the analysis. All right. So the interest tax yield, I think I did it in the wrong order. That's okay. We can do it. Interest tax yield would be the interest times the principal. So let's see, where am I at? What in the world? Let's start again here. Oh, I'm sorry, tax yield. So sorry. Yep, it's the interest times the tax rate, and we'll lock the tax rate, of course. All right. This looks good. Okay, so here we go. How much of this? How much of this payment goes toward principal? And let's bring this down one more. Well, the you can do all this in one, minimal cells if you want, but that's all right. So our after-tax payment is the 144.30, except that you get a tax yield of 6.3. So we'll just add those together. Okay, so you're actually going to make a payment of 138 on an after-tax basis. All right, and then of this 144 that you made for your payment, 30 less will go toward principal. So 144 and 30. So we'll add these together. All right. So 114.30 goes to principal, and so then you can find your remaining principal. And so at the end of the first year, the company still owes $385.70 on this loan. Okay, how are we doing? Everybody follow that? Did I go back and forth too much? It's kind of a different version of amortizing a loan, because when you amortize a loan in an accounting class, you're not concerned with after-tax payments. Okay, so it's just a little bit different here. All right, let's keep going. Hopefully we can finish this. All right, then the next year, what happens? We can see that you always pay 6% on the remaining balance, so that'll be 6%. Let me get this one right. Yep. So it'll be 6% on $385.70, right? Okay, and then we'll see a tax shield. You don't need all this. I mean, why? And we'll see a tax shield of, oh, that's nice. Oh, what did I do? It pull across. My fault. We'll see a tax shield of, yeah, here we go again. I want to get these fixed up before I copy them across. Okay, and then the after-tax payment and everything else here is the same. These look pretty good. So copy those. All right, now we're down to 2 decimals. Looks good. And we'll copy this across. And as you can see, by the time we make that last payment, we have no balance remaining on the loan. Okay. But what we will be doing here, let's find the NPV loan. Okay, so what happened? The lessor receives an asset basically worth purchases an asset worth $500 and makes after-tax payments of $114.30, $138, $139.44, $140.96, and $142.58. So you know what? Why don't we highlight these so we can make sure we get the right row. All right. So the NPV of the loan would be, this is essentially cash flow zero. He receives $500 from the lender, purchases the asset, or as the leasing company, the principal there, you would call it this funding source. So the funding source would provide him with $500, and then he would make these payments back. So the NPV would be equals NPV. All right, and once again, for anything involved in the lease, the discount rate is the after-tax cost of an equivalent loan. So we're going to go up here and get the 6% and convert it to after-tax. All right, next argument is just the cash flows. So we'll catch these. All right. And then, of course, the NPV argument, I think we've seen this enough times throughout the course. This is not net present value. This is present value of N cash flows, in this case, 4 cash flows. So we have to adjust it for the initial cash flow. So we'll say plus, and we will put that right above. We'll go up 1. Is that all right? Okay, then away we go. Ready? Drum roll, please. How about that? So let's go up and answer our initial question. why do we not include financing cash flow? So what would happen to we do an NPV analysis of the leasing cash flows, correct? What would happen if we added these cash flows? So we added 500 to cash flow 0, and all of these cash flows in yellow to cash flows 1, 2, 3, and to years 1. Well, you're going to get NPV 0. It doesn't change anything. Why do we not include it? Very straightforward answer here. In fact, if you want, we can just let's insert a row here. Because the lease analysis. Oh, so why do we not include for the lessor? Why do we not include financing cash flows? Well, it's because the NPV of the lease is 0. All right, now I'm saying that, will it always be 0? Will financing NPVs always be 0? Well, no. Let's say, for example, that you're Foxconn right now, and you're moving into Wisconsin, and so you'll be building some kind of a facility, and let's say Foxconn's normal borrowing rate, say, is like we have here, 6%. But to induce the company to move into Wisconsin, maybe some kind of an EDA, Economic Development Administration, offers them a 4% loan. So it's a subsidized loan. Okay, well, that creates a positive NPV. So for example, if I would come in here, and let's say I change this discount rate to 4%. I'll watch what happens. Now how'd that work? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've loaned it 6. Let's say that it should be 8%. I went the wrong way. Yeah, this is not, if you can borrow at 4% and you're making payments based on 6, that's not very subsidized, is it? No. So say 6% is a subsidized loan, and the appropriate rate should be 8%. Well, then there you go. I'm sorry, that's on me. So that creates a positive NPV, but let's not do that. Let's just keep these as we would have them. Oh, there we go. So we'll just keep it at 0. So therefore, there's no subsidies in the lending here. All right. So that covers most of what I wanted to do, except the assignment has a bit of ambiguity to it. All right. And I think since I've been in education, I have always tried to, if there is any difficulty with an assignment, that it not be because the assignment is ambiguous or difficult to follow or difficult to find. And that's what you'll see in your first problem that I've assigned from chapter 25, and that's number 14. So let's do some background for chapter 14. And so if you read your book, you might not recognize that the authors basically did the same analysis that we do. They just do it differently. All right, so let's start out with this is the Graymere Bus Company example. Right? And we're doing this because this is in reference to problem 14, or question 14, right? And they use this as an example in demonstrating their analysis techniques for the lessee and the lessor. But anyway, it's a bus which has a cost of $100,000. right? The borrowing rate is for both the lessor and the lessee is 10%. Right? Well, the newest edition of your text has already come out and it's corrected the corporate tax rate down from 35 to 21%, but we're still in the old book, so we'll stay with the 35%. All right, and this bus lease will be for a term of term of the lease is 8 periods, so it's 8 payments, and the lease calls for the payments to be $16,900. All right, now what you'll see in your text is that when the authors set up all their tables for this, that they do it in thousands. So they'll show the cost to be 100, they'll show the payment to be 16.9, but I'm going to stay with the thousands. It doesn't matter that much. Right, let's start out from the perspective of the lessor, and you're going to find in a hurry that the lessor analysis is by far the most interesting in the problems in the book. I'll show you why shortly. Okay, and how did we do it? Let's just follow the way we did, not what you find in your book. The book shows the 8 cash flows associated with, well, yeah, 7 in year 0, all the cash flows associated with the decision to write the lease. Right? We're going to do it our way, or my way at least, and I hope you would adopt it. And that would be start out with the cost. So we'll say minus the 100,000. All right. And then let's do the depreciation factors. Okay, well, first you have to have them before you can discount them. So let's, and this is the 5-year class, and these factors are in chapter 6 of your text, but I happen to have them here, so I'll get them very quickly here. Let's see, where are these freaking things? Here they are. Oh, yeah. So 5-year class, 6 factors. All right, and you know what? I'm going to shrink up these cells a little bit so we can see all these factors. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think for maybe 10 minutes of my life, I understood exactly how they came up with these factors. You know, someone showed me once, and you know, I've never done it again. So I have you know, no need to understand the process. I just need to know the factors. But I do recall the last one was half because it stays accelerated to the point where straight line becomes more, or offers a larger tax write-off than the accelerated, and then it's just back to straight line. I remember it seems to me the last one's always half of the second to the last. I don't know, but anyway. So you know, that's for accountants. They know how they do this. Good for them. Well, let's take the present value of these factors. All right, let's take the present value of these. Okay, so equals NPV. And our rate, okay, let's stay with the program. It is the borrowing rate on an after-tax basis. So we'll do a comma on that, right? And then we will highlight the factors. I think that gets them all. And then we'll close the argument and convert that to 4 decimals. Right? And then let's find the PV tax shields. Oops. So the present value of the depreciation tax shields, and you might remember how to do that, I hope. What do? We take the cost times the present value of the factors times the tax rate. All right, so can you see that the higher the tax rate, the more valuable are these depreciation tax shields, correct? All else the same? All right, we're just multiplying. It's just a factor. We multiply by the tax rate. So if the tax rate is higher, relatively higher, then the value of the tax shields will be higher. So what do you think happens if you're working with a nonprofit? Okay, what's the opportunity cost of not having the tax shields? In other words, if a nonprofit leases an asset, then what happens? Is there an opportunity cost for the tax shields? No, because that last factor in this calculation is T. If that's 0, this whole term goes to 0, doesn't it? Okay. So obviously, the higher the tax rate, the higher the benefit of these tax shields, correct? All right. And so this is the benefit of the tax shields. So then we'll get a net cost. And this is what we've done in the past, nothing new here. Right. Oh, of course, just what I wanted. Okay, let's see. All right. I'll give you one more. All right, there we go. All right, then we know the payments. Let's find the NPV. So present value after tax payments. Word lease in there, I guess. I hope you know that's what it is. So equals. Now this will be, okay, this will be the present value function. Okay, the present value function follows Descartes' law. In other words, it has to have a sign change. So if you enter the payment as a positive number, it will provide you with a negative present value. So what we will do is that we'll preempt that and we'll say minus, because we know that the lease payments are a cash inflow to the lessor. Okay, so I'm going to put a negative sign. Now you could also put a negative sign on the payment. That would work too, but let's just do it on the whole function. So minus present value, right? And our rate, one more time, I'm going to keep emphasizing this. So 10% times 1 minus t. Now, if you want to type in 0.065, that would work very nicely, wouldn't it? But I'm just doing this for emphasis. Okay, comma. The next argument is the payment. So let's get that. That'd be 16,900. And then let's no future value. And let's instruct Excel to treat these as beginning of the period cash flows. Right? And then to keep the Excel nanny from squawking at you, we'll give it the right parentheses. And you get this. Oh, we get points. Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh my goodness, how did I do that? Okay, so rate, I got that. Oh, number of periods. I left an argument out. Well, how about that? See, it's not hard to do, is it? Okay, and that would be the second argument. All right, my fault. 8 periods, 8 payments, my fault. Okay, so comma. So sorry. Hope you didn't follow me exactly. I just had to read along my arguments and I skipped one. So do I always do Excel perfectly? Absolutely not. But that's why it's been so good to me all these years. Because I can always correct myself, you know. All right, so here we go. Now let's try it. And of course, it's probably got 42 decimals waiting for me. There we go. Oh, my fault. What did I do wrong? Someone want to tell me on the scratch pad? What's wrong with this? I'm batting 10% right now. What did I do wrong? This is one of the disadvantages of not just flashing PowerPoints. You know, PowerPoints don't make mistakes unless you put them together. What did I do wrong? Someone tell me. Why is this not the correct answer? Are we just following along? Oh, he clicked it, I'll click it. He clicked it, I'll click it. You walked into a wall, I'll walk into a wall. That's fine. What did I do wrong? Okay, well, I'm not seeing a lot coming at me here. What does it say here? After-tax payments. So let's adjust that payment to be after tax. So rate, here's my rate. Here's my number of periods. Here's my payment. And let's go after tax on this. Can we do that? Oh, no, no, no. Okay, do it again. After tax. So let's multiply this by times 1 minus, and let's get our tax rate. All right, now let's look at it. Have I corrected everything? I believe I have. There we go. All right, so then I can do the NPV. I hope we know it's the lease. Just add these together. Now notice I'm on, somehow I'm on the insert ribbon, and my auto sum isn't on that ribbon, but where do I find it? I have it on my quick access toolbar, don't I? So I just click it here, and there you go. All right, now if you're reading your text very carefully, and I know you just every night you read it just for pleasure, it completed the same analysis only in thousands. So the answer you'll find in your text will be this. It'll say, it doesn't give you that many decimals, that's for sure. Yeah, they say 0.70. That's the answer in your text, all right? Now let's analyze this from the Graymare company. Before I go to the Graymare, let's make sure we're all caught up. Everybody see what I did wrong on this? You caught up? Everybody caught up. All right, well, I got one person brave enough to tell me. All right, good enough. I hope we are. All right, now the Graymare company. All right, and oops. What am I getting here? Could you show cell? I'd love to show you C32. Where is C2? Right here. Okay. It's just the sum of the net cost and the present value of the after-tax payments. So do we have one of these perhaps not correct, or what's going on here? Let's see what we got. Oh, C32. What did I do wrong? Oh, sorry. CCC. Well, I like B's better, okay? That would be just this number divided by 1,000. Okay, because your authors conduct all this analysis in thousands of dollars. So they would have called the payment 16.9, the principal 100. And so I'm just trying to show you that this is actually very consistent with what you'll find in your book. Is that right? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why I did B. All right, I hope that did it. Ah, good enough. Very good. All right, the Graymare Company. All right, let's start out with the Graymare Company. It has an initial savings. Like any other lessor, don't have to buy the bus. You will save $100,000 by leasing it immediately. All right. And let's go right to what's different here. All right. The Graymare, I don't remember the exact reason you think a bus company would be paying taxes, but they have a 0 tax rate. They have a 0 tax rate. I think it's because of carry forward losses or something to that effect, but they have a 0 tax rate. All right, let's go back up here a minute. What happens to this analysis? Well, it would be the NPV 1 minus 0. So we just use the raw borrowing rate. If we were to do this, we could, I guess. And then what happened here? Well, you can see the tax rate, the borrowing rate, and the present value of the factors. Well, the tax rate's 0. So where we're multiplying by 0.35 for the lessor, we are multiplying by 0 for Graymare, the lessee, and that makes this term go to 0. So there is no opportunity cost of the related to the non-ownership of the asset for the depreciation tax shields. All right. And so what's the borrowing rate? Or what's the let's do discount rate, we might as well. Well, it's very straightforward. Equals. I know you can do this in your head faster than I can write it by far, but I'm just emphasizing a point. It's always the after-tax cost of an equivalent loan. But if you happen to have a tax rate of 0, the before and after tax cost of the loan are the same, aren't they? How do I get answered all the time? I have no idea. Anyway, so the discount rate is the borrowing rate in this case. Why? Because the tax rate is 0. So what is the lease payment? You know that it's a $16,900. Right? So let's find the present value of the lease payments. All right, so that would equal the NPV Oh, sorry. This is present value. Payments are the same. We'll do PV. Unless you want to write out 8 payments, I don't think we want to do that. So present value, and then we have the discount rate right here. So let's use it. Number of periods, that would be 8. All right, payment. This is supposed to be the after-tax lease payment. All right, but we know that the after-tax and the before-tax are the same because the tax rate is 0. But we are going to emphasize that. It would be this number right here times 1 minus the tax rate. Okay, so I'm not treating this company any differently. They just happen to have a tax rate of 0. So there's our payment. And we'll take out the future value, add the end of period indicator, or beginning of period indicator, forgive me, and there we are. All right, so the NPV, oops, what did I do that for? Okay, there we go. The NPV of the lease will just be the sum of these two. All right, and we'll do the same treatment here to create the parallel with what your text did. And your text shows that the NPV of the lease for the Graymare Company is 0.820. Well, we're going to have 824, but ours is actually more accurate than theirs. Okay. All right, so what do we have? We have a positive NPV to the lessor. We have a positive NPV to the lessee. So this is what you're supposed to have read through and found. Now your questions. What is question 14 asking about this? Well, what do you think? What are the 3 questions we have relative to analyzing leases? Well, one, of course, is the NPV of the lease. We've done that. There it is for the lessor. Here it is for the lessee. And the next question is, what's the maximum payment that the lessor should be willing to make? Obviously, it could be more than $16,900, couldn't it? What's the minimum payment that the lessor should be willing to accept? And obviously, it's something less than $16,900. Okay. And that's what question 14 asked you to complete. All right. Uh-oh, I'm lighting up. Well, finally, this thing's working. This is so good. All right, what do we got? Equation B40. I can do that. Let me try it. Okay, B, I got the right one. B40, yeah. Yeah, that's just the sum of the present value of the payments plus the initial cost. Okay. So you saved 100, or Graymare saved $100,000 by not purchasing the bus immediately, and compares that to the present value of the 8 lease payments, which is $99,176. Thus, they're better off leasing by this amount, and that's the NPV of the lease. Now, did I do the same thing I did to that last time? Did you want C or B? B. I got B. How about that? Yep. Looking good. All right. Yeah, so your assignment here is just to answer the final 2 questions, and then, the maximum amount the lessee should be willing to pay, and the minimum amount that the lessor should be willing to accept. That would be great, wouldn't it? So that answers number 14. Your next one is number 16, and I just have one comment on that one, and you want to make a note of that. It's on the lecture notes down here. So for question 18, please use the MACRS 5-year schedule. That's those factors that we just used in the Graymare example. Okay. So question 18 is a school which is evaluating a lease for a computer system. And of course, the school would be a tax exempt, wouldn't it? So your T is 0 one more time. So the analysis from the perspective of the lessee, the school, is not particularly interesting, but the analysis from the perspective of the lessor, and they ask you to do that, the authors ask you to do that, is much more interesting. And the lessor will depreciate the computer following the 5-year schedule, the MACRS 5-year schedule. And those are in chapter 6. I don't recall the page. Let me just see if I happen to have written that down here. No, I don't think I did. Okay. All right, I guess not. Okay, so anyway, now they're in chapter 6. And the reason I refer you to that is problem number 19, question 19. And your authors seem to have a propensity for working with T equals 0 lessees. So here's one more. And this one specifically says it has sufficient tax loss carry forwards such that it will not be paying taxes in the foreseeable future. All right, so T equals 0 for question 19 also for the lessor. Sorry, lessee. Oh, don't do that. Lessee. All right. Now, chapter 19 question is fairly similar to what we did for what you'll be doing for question 14, except that instead of being in the 5-year class, it's in the 7-year class. So you will have 8 depreciation factors. All right. And I believe it'll be 10 payments too. All right. But that doesn't overly complicate this analysis because you just simply enter 8 factors instead of 4 like we've been doing, or 6 in this last example. You just enter 8 factors and all the other calculations are exactly the same. And that's why I prefer this particular method. I'm looking above here. I guess I see in your in the lecture note document, I did the analysis for the lessor. But anyway, all right. So that's about it. So on Tuesday, I will go through these 3 problems and relatively quickly, and then we will start. We have to complete 1/2 of our merger analysis content. So in other words, our last topic will be merger analysis, and I've broken it down into 2 parts, and I hope you could guess the basis for the 2 parts. Well, your assignment has 2 questions, so I'll work one example that's similar to one of the, to each of the questions, and we'll do one of the examples on Tuesday, and then we'll take the next Thursday off, or at least no class. And then the following Tuesday, we'll have the second analysis, the merger analysis based on the second problem. And then the following Thursday, the last day of classes, we'll start out with course evaluations, and then we will go through the problems and do a review for the final. All right, so that looks like what we have coming up, and I will remain on board here until I know that we have no questions about what I tried to do today. So let me just report in, and if you have any questions, please enter them now or speak up. Otherwise, that's all we have. I know I made a little error there with my after-tax payments, so I got to make sure we have all these little details correct. Excuse me. I built this extra time into these examples because when we first started this hybrid format, administration asked us to leave plenty of time to change sections in the classroom without the students crossing each other. So the idea was to finish your class early so the other section could get in without having to wait for your students to walk out. And that's also why I let you take your exams anywhere you want, because if you want to work the full amount of time, you might come across somebody entering the classroom from the next section. So we try to eliminate that too. So anyway, that's all I have. Well, I will see you on Tuesday.